Hello and welcome to another episode of Stars and Startups with me, Varun Bhumidi. If you're a first time listener, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. All links can be found in show notes. This is the podcast where we get up close and personal with interesting founders and doers from the Indian startup ecosystem. On the podcast, we hear illuminating stories of entrepreneurship and the journey of building businesses. Nishit is the co founder of Locus, a tool that plugs in the supply chain of an enterprise and starts automating all human decisions in the process. Locus is backed by some stellar investors and also services top CPG companies in the world. They've become so integral to the operations of their clients that they have been offered hard cash by those who wanted to ensure that Locus survived when COVID struck. Hope you enjoy my super intriguing session with Nishit. Let's get on with the show. Hey Nishit, welcome to the show. It's been a while. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Absolutely great. It's been a great morning. A lot of learning since morning already.
Hey, awesome. So
Yeah.
you are currently part of the Blue portfolio, and I think on certain weekends they do a learning session.
Oh yeah. So definitely there was some of that today morning.
But now you've
Mm,
shifted base from Bombay to London.
I moved last year to US, and that's where I'm living and working. Like this allows me to be closer to my North American clients. But during COVID, travel is restricted, and to make it easy to work with both Asia and North America teams, I've just come down to UK.
Fantastic, man. That means Locus, which is your current startup, is growing in leaps and bounds. And I guess the growth strategy has been affected by COVID much, or has accelerated, adoption.
Both, I would say, right? So the first half of that is where people just stop buying, right? Like in April and May, nobody was buying enterprise software,
Mm.
uh, right? And it was all about just managing the current crisis. So if you were Zoom, if you're Microsoft Teams, amazing time. You need companies needed ultra quick time to value, right? Uh, and when I say that people weren't buying, that's where it even impacts companies like Slack, right?
Mm.
Like it was just easier for somebody to quickly buy Microsoft Teams, enable it as a checkbox, and now the entire organization is on it because people went work from home literally overnight, right? Having said that, I don't think even you, Varun, or me personally, and I used to sell tech to grocery companies, right, had ever worried till 2019 about our personal groceries, right? It
Mhm.
used to just happen in some autopilot fashion. This year, definitely, there were weeks when we were personally worried. If
Mm.
we were worried, I assured you those business owners were really worried,
Mm.
right, as to how they will get their thing. So what COVID has definitely done is immediately put supply chain at the forefront.
Mm.
Nobody now thinks of it as a cost center, which was the predominant view, but as a competitive differentiator, or even as core as survival. So that's where we are now seeing the second half, where we are seeing a lot of tailwinds, right? People want to upgrade their logistics tech stack. People want to enable more deliveries. If you think of it, it took 10 years for online market to become 10% of the overall retail market, right? And then it took 9 months of COVID to for it to become 20% of the literally double up the online market, which basically means if back in 2016, 17, 18, all the startups were buying the tech for logistics to enable home deliveries, curbside deliveries. That same cycle we are starting to see in enterprises, right? And that's where the second half comes of, where there is
Mm.
tailwinds, right? Like COVID is not a blessing for anyone. That is
Yeah.
not at all what I want to imply. But to look at the silver linings in the cloud, there was a first half of the impact where businesses weren't buying enterprise cycles. In the second half, we are definitely seeing a lot more curiosity for tech like ours, which both allows you to enable multiple logistics channel as well as reduce the dependence on on-site workforce.
Awesome, man. So I mean, of course, I don't think anybody wishes, it was because of COVID that businesses have been successful. And I think a lot of founders have alluded to that, right? They're saying, hey, we've been here at the right time, the right place. Unfortunately, the right time is not a great time for humanity and people in general. So it's okay. Can we embrace the opportunity and make the most out of
Yep.
it? And of course, I mean, there's part capitalism and there's part humanity, and both have to survive for, um, I guess, for people to move forward, right? When you started off with Locus, I want to get into a little bit. Geet and you were at Amazon, and
Right.
you guys went on to found another company, um, which then became,
Locus.
RideSafe.
Yeah.
RideSafe, which then became Locus. Now, uh, RideSafe, at that point, you were selling that technology that you built uh, to mobility companies, right? Like an Uber and Ola, cab providers,
Um,
or was it a different segment?
we
Actually, what is
weren't
RideSafe?
like,
For the audience,
yeah, it
maybe
was
you can go
actually,
to.
so Geet and I both used to work in Amazon Web Services,
Hmm.
very specifically the AWS machine learning team. We have a bunch of handwritten code in the platform. Uh, then we quit our day jobs to, start a location-based messaging venture called PinChat, um, which was the first company you referred to. While we were building that, there was a pretty infamous Uber incident in India where the safety of a passenger was compromised by the driver. That topic of women's safety was close to both Geet and I for personal reasons. In my case, my father has been the post-trauma psychiatrist on many of these infamous cases, and these were a lot of family conversation for us over, just like news cycles. Uh, so and so we took like a very personal take on this, and then what we built out was first this route deviation tech. We used to call it real-time route deviation detection. So it
Okay.
becomes R2D2, right? We were just like a bunch of
Star Wars
engineers making a
geeks.
bunch of exactly engineering jokes, right? But what this did was, see, there were a lot of women safety apps which were like, shake your phone if you're in trouble or some tracking or something, but all of them, you know allow something worse to happen and then you can act on it, right? We
It's a
wanted to
reactive
preempt it.
technology.
Exactly, right? We wanted to preempt it. So we built up this algorithm that, given just a source destination pair. So let's say if you're from airport going back to your hotel, the app will logically monitor if your driver is taking to your hotel or somewhere else,
Sure.
because you can be going through route 1, route 2, some parallel, some traffic, factoring in all of those, much like, as a human would looking at a tracking link, it would mimic that human judgment,
Hmm.
right? This is what we had launched as a B2C app. Like, we didn't know really what to make a business out of it, but we just thought this was a cool algorithm, right, which could actually be useful. And for what it's worth, I've had at least so people used to call us when, it used to alert them and something, and we have had
Mhm.
actually, three three true not positives, right? Like, what I mean by that is, like, where somebody called and said that, what happened, like, my driver was taking me somewhere, this started ringing, and then the driver became very flustered and he actually just dropped me in the middle of the road and went, right? Like, he started making excuses for fuel and all of that. So it makes me feel really happy that, at least there were at least, some people it made a big difference in. Then interestingly, what happened, the very same app,
Mhm.
very intelligently, one of these on-demand companies founder started using it to manage their fleet,
Hmm.
right? Which was very interesting to us because, we thought GPS is not new, fleet management is not new.
Hmm.
Why are you hacking together a B2C app for this function? Right? To which they gave us a very critical nuance that, in a GPS tracking thing, I get to know where my driver is. I don't care for that. What I need to know is if my driver is not where he should be, right? And that was a very interesting nuance that while there is a bunch of tech in supply chain around visibility, effectively answering the question where my package is,
Right.
very little of the tech is focused towards decision making, that where my package should be. And that's what led to Locus.
By saying that where the package should be is that there's an intended direction it should be going in.
Right, like all the planning at a macro level to execution at the micro level, but the decision making piece, not just the monitoring piece, right? Like most of the logistic tech that you typically hear is that, or tell me if, a temperature, what's the temperature of my cold chain? Give me all the information,
Sure.
right? We wanted to go a step beyond visibility, that now that if you have visibility on your network, can your network actually start collaborating,
Hmm.
right? Can you actually do the decision making piece on it, right? Which which as a market demand really got accelerated by Varun, you and Nishit, I being coming part of the supply chain.
Hmm.
What I mean by that is, see, till 10 years back, you used to go to a retail store and pull from there, right? Today, most of your packages are actually pushed down to you,
Hmm.
much like an app notification. And that needs a dramatically complex decision making, which is also very quickly changing. So it's actually not possible by humans to do it so fast and efficiently. And that's where Locus comes in, right? So Locus is a tech platform that plugs into your enterprise supply chain and takes over decision making like routing, load optimizations, network optimization, fleet monitoring, and automates that entire journey.
Basically, what you're saying is that logistics is extremely complicated now than it ever was, and that was exciting to you as a founder, as an engineer. Those are problems you wanted to solve.
Yes, to be, and as I very said, in all fairness, we kept discovering it in hindsight, right? We had quit our day jobs to build a location based messaging app, which became a location based safety app, which effectively became Locus. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, we are very clearly, confident of where we are, where we want to be, and we are very excited about this space. We think that, a future chief supply chain officer can actually be a software model, right?
Mhm.
How much like quant funds on Wall Street trade with effectively an algorithm, right? We have a very similar mathematical view of logistics. We are not operations experts. We are a team of PhDs and engineers who are confident of their maths, and we think logistics is just a great industry to apply it. It wasn't being applied here a lot because, as I mentioned, there was relatively lesser need of it, right? Think companies like Big Basket and Mintra did not exist, who need to deliver to you on a daily, hourly changing frequency, right? And do that reliably. For example, with Big Basket, we have delivered over 10 million packages as part of the case study
Wow.
at an on time performance of 99.5% for all the jokes about traffics in India,
Yeah.
right? And that's, of course, like, in great part to the credit of the amazing operations team there, right? But yeah, so that's
What was
effectively
it?
what we do.
What was it prior to that? Like, of course, you have on-time delivery, and it's easy to kind of share that. But typically, given like you said, Big Basket is a use case. What was it prior, and why was it important to them?
So we have been with a part of them since quite early in their journey, but they were still they've always been a strong player in the space, and they always had tracking, but they had manual dispatching, where the dispatch managers every day will factor in the customer demand and try and create the most optimized routes, right? And that's still like quite better than often what's the stock process at many other places. And they were very driven in general by technology to have like a great standardization, great efficiency. They always knew that's their part to scale. So with them we never had to do any market creation or buy-in. They were as educated and leading customer as they get. And as a matter of fact, I have personally learned a lot with them, both on the product as well as just simply project management. So Sudhakar, who's the CEO, and Tejas, who's the head of products, right? I count them as my personal mentors today. Like, from customers, they have definitely become my mentors over time. And I would say that, for example, the CIO of Blue Dart, Manoj Madhavan, like, he later over the years taught us how we could do our pricing better, right? Like, for example, when we first positioned to him, we were like, hey, we are saving you, 12% efficiency in your transport cost. And then he made us realize that, if you're dispatching 12% extra staff,
Mhm.
you're also saving 12% on the retail,
Yeah.
right? So as I very humbly said that, we were complete outsiders to logistics. We have actually learned by working with some of our clients. They have been very gracious enough to, give a chance to us at our early stages. And we have now grown with them over the years. Like now it's a very strong relationship, and we hope to do that for over the next decade.
What's interesting is, you brought up Big Basket as an example, and of course, I think anyone in India who orders from them actually had high regard for them in the early days, right? Where and probably still now in a lot of cities where Big Basket operates, is that the fresh produce gets delivered to them in a certain amount of time, and of course, they have the ability to book these slots, get it in a certain location, get it delivered. And it's very easy to predict that timeline as well, and it also comes very efficiently. But the moment they shifted to a 2 hour delivery window and other things started to kind of fall apart in a way. I personally believe, I've experienced it also, that during those times, things were not, at their best. Was it because of, is it poor planning, or is it just that some of these things don't get factored into a model like yours at that point for it to become better? And which is why they use a service like Locus to say, okay, well, what we have all this data. Now, if you want to change some of these parameters, like now we don't have the 1 day or 2 day windows to optimize to a large extent. How do we bring that window down to 2 hours and say, can we deliver that same kind of experience in a shorter duration?
So I'm sorry for your anecdotal experience. I think statistically, even right now on the 2 hour model, they've been doing like amazingly well. And as I've always said, that first credits to all the operations team. But yeah, these are exactly the kind of things we help other teams with, where we can get more predictability into their delivery, shorten the time windows. Every time there is a slight business model change, there is definitely a fluctuation. But the idea is where it stabilizes at scale and can then be replicated, done predictably, done in a cost efficient manner, right? So similarly, we do this with companies, from startups to large public market companies, from their last mile to their first mile across the surface transport chain. So today we don't run on air and water, right? We don't handle freight. What we handle really well is surface transport. We're also working in India, as well as we have teams in Ho Chi Minh, Jakarta, which covers our Southeast Asia region. We have clients in Middle East, Australia, New Zealand area, ANZ, and then of course the US and Canada, which has become like a big focus for the company over the last couple of years.
Well, trucking and freight is massive in the US, so it's probably a great market because they also have the roads and the equipment. I mean, the infrastructure to do that. Um, but I'm curious. So, does the complexity change with geography now that you've seen cross country? Because I know, depending on the type of business, it changes drastically and the costs differ. But does geography also bring in different challenges?
Absolutely. So there's this beautiful quote in The Dark Knight Rises by Bane, right? He says it to the Batman, and he says that you like Batman is trying to fight him in the dark by switching off the lights and all, and that's when Bane says that you merely adopted the dark. I was born into it. I was molded into it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens when you have done logistics in the east and then you go west. So I think logistics and payments are two markets which have always been the rising sun market, right? What I mean by that is that if you want to build an iPhone, it makes sense to design it for the consumer expectation of a person sitting in California. If it works for her, it would work for anybody anywhere in the world, right? That is not true for logistics. You don't have perfect addresses, you don't have perfect road conditions, you don't have perfect infrastructure. And then it's the job of your software model to accommodate for all of these constraints. But once you have done that, your systems becomes dramatically robust. Like today we have processed over 100 million deliveries in the east, right? So when you go down to the west, you can actually handle many of those constraints and much more. and many of these things, even like on demand deliveries, cash on deliveries, a lot of these quick 2 hour returns, all of these models actually originated from Southeast Asia, and then permeated to the West. So it actually gives us an edge. We are interestingly, have always been headquartered as a US company, but we decided to first start solving the problems on the Southeast Asian markets, because they just offer the most complex physical environments. I assure you, if you think, you know, traffic in Gurgaon or Bangalore is bad, next time you're in Bali for a vacation, take a short trip to Jakarta, right?
Yeah.
Like 3 hours in Jakarta will make you appreciate, oh, Indian traffic is so smooth, right? So yeah, like they just offer some of them. Sorry,
No,
you were
that's
saying something?
mind blowing. No, I was just saying, like, even I've seen Ho Chi Minh as well, just the craziness of the roads,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think they're just behind some of the developed world, right? It's just a matter of time before all of those change. And again, you'll have to relook at your models on how the deliveries would work in some of these countries.
absolutely.
Um, so, so you're saying, of course, the complexity is a lot more over there, and hence they appreciate your business a lot more. The solution that you offer is appreciated more over there. Is that the thought?
No, I was saying that was the way to make it more robust. See,
Hmm.
people appreciate the solution if it's saving you absolute cost. It doesn't matter how hard or easy the problem is, right? So that's why the appeal of this is reasonably global. And within a year, North America has actually become like 20-25% of our business. And we see it becoming very quickly 50% of our business. Uh, but from a technical perspective, it's like, where do you make the product most robust? Like if you
Got
want to
it.
make your design most robust, you go and test it with the audience in Brooklyn, right? Like just as a demographic, they have a higher expectation of design. So similarly, if you want to make tech which interacts with the physical world more robust, go deploy it in Asia, then port it back to the West, right? Then you're left with doing simple things as converting kilometers to miles, but you've
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
baked in the complexity of what to do when the traffic is not predictable, when it suddenly rains.
Yeah. Uh, Why is this important though? Because when you typically look at startups, you'll say build a minimum viable product, right? Saying that
Yeah,
start with the simplest, find the use case, and then solve for more
absolutely.
complex and build more, right? Why is that different in this scenario?
No, that's a great question. That's a really great question, and the answer to that is very first principles. That, see, you have to decide whether you are the first in the market. If not, then your only option is to be the best in the market.
Mm.
The problem we are trying to solve, like everyone has read about traveling salesmen in the school textbooks and stuff, right? The broad basic maths of it has existed for about 100 years, right? People have been doing basic delivery optimization for, going back to Middle Ages, right? We didn't have an option to be the first in the market. So our only option was to be the best in the market. That's why we first hired PhDs, then we hired sales guys. And this was especially true when we were starting up. Like, today B2B is all the craze. Back in 2015, it was all about B2C. The debate was to build a 6-week MVP or a 9-week MVP, right? And we were like, no, I think we will need 3 to 6 months to even build the structure of the match to see if it's possible, right? uh, yeah, so I
Yeah.
think it's more of the problem you're attacking, right?
Mm.
We didn't have the option to be the first in the market, so our only option was truly to be the best in the market. So we actually built out the IP for over 1.5 years before we really took it out. Yeah.
Oh wow. So what I'm hearing is that if you're and being the best in the market is also a market that somewhat is proven, right? So that means there's no question of product market fit in this scenario.
Yeah.
It's about, can you cater to this market in the right way and then be able to capture value.
Right.
In that case, how do you then say price a business like this, right? If uh, and as I understand it, you're a layer on top of existing logistics that they're already doing. So your service is that intelligence that gets built on top of this, right? So they already have an expense, and this is an added cost to that. Of course, it has some tangible revenue or impact to their bottom line. So how do you then, work with a business to say, okay, you need to part with a little bit more money for you to do a better job down the stream?
That's actually, to be honest, reasonably simple for us.
Hmm.
We sell much like Teslas. We sell on total cost of ownership, right? And we don't actually touch the bottom line as much as the top line, right? Because most of the companies adopting us are growth stage companies. They always have growth pressures. So when we look at efficient, they're looking at efficiency. They're not looking at cost savings, but they're looking at higher throughput.
Okay.
So most of them make an investment into this over considering it as an expense. And with like the time to value is really really low. Like the time to value can be as low as 30 days, and within 90 days it permeates to multiple orgs in the organization, right? Within 6 months you can have documented case studies that your cost of, so think of it this way, that let's just hypothetically say if you were spending $100 a day on a van doing 10 deliveries. Now your average cost of delivery is 10 deliveries per van, right? We bump it up by 20% and now you're delivering, say, 12 orders, right? Now your average cost of delivery is 8.2 something, right? Now out of the $1.8 I've saved you, I'll be like, 0.36 is mine and 1.5 is yours. So you save money, I save money. See, for some odd reasons, most of us while growing up have just axiomatically believed that negotiations are a zero sum game. That if I need to win, somebody needs to lose.
Mhm.
In practice, most business negotiations are and definitely should be optimization games, right? And which is specifically true for a company like us, which is quite literally selling optimization, right? So the negotiation is typically always how to split the loot, but everybody is getting the loot, right? So it's really not that acrimonious a process, right? And as an infrastructure service, also, we have actually been able to, like, people have, like, our accounts, like, have multiple accounts, which initially started out as, let's say, $100,000 account, but are now
Mhm.
over a half a million or $1 million account over the couple of years, right? So we have grown across geographies, we have grown across product lines, we have grown across their base, they have grown in their own base, right? And I remember, like, in 2015, everybody was like, hey, nobody's gonna, 150K is about a crore, right? So nobody's
Yeah.
gonna pay you crore recurring for a software, right? And I can tell you that, today we have a bunch of Indian customers paying $500,000 recurring for software, right? And they find value in that because we are also not selling software; we are selling value.
Right. I mean, I think that's the most important part, right? Because the question is always like, can they make it and can they do a better job than you? But if you've spent a year building IP, I don't think many businesses are going to spend time and hire PhDs to write code.
And then comes the second piece of this, right? Like, for example,
Hmm.
during this conversation in the last 26 minutes, I think, we would have collected over another 6 to 8 million new data points, right? Because today we are running millions of deliveries every week through the platform, millions of packages every day through the platform, right? And that keeps on becoming a vicious mode, which, constantly feeds back into the IP, right? So you need to start with a differentiated enough IP, but it should be designed in a way that it constantly learns over execution. That at a very fundamental level is what machine learning is, right? Like, if you think of it, a car decays in value every year you use it. So that's a
Right.
very classical example of a non-learning system, right?
Yes.
A machine learning software, every year that you use it, will actually keep
Mhm.
on increasing in its value. Exponential returns in that data for incremental
Right.
costs. Car example, I always give that example of, reversing the car in your garage. Now,
Mm.
as many times as you do it, you as a human are getting better because
Mhm.
you are learning, right? Like, the first few times maybe you scratch it, you bump it, right? By your second year, you are on a phone call while trying to, pick up your groceries, and you can reverse back into your garage, right? But on day zero, your car was actually more valuable, right? On day 365, your car is less valuable, but your driving skills are more valuable. And that's a very classical difference, between a learning versus non-learning systems.
And to that point, you're also learning from other businesses using this platform, right? And I think that's the biggest value add, right? Because you're saying that I can actually learn from 100 companies doing the same thing than me having to do 100 things.
So what we often say is like we democratize the tech behind Amazon, right? Like that's the whole point. So we invest in heavily, right? Like not a lot of companies would put in 2-digit number of PhDs in just one specific use case. I don't think we would if this was our business. And to be honest, nobody, this build versus buy, right? Like is a very investment deck questions. Nobody in business actually really. Like see, there is always a very small intersection of companies, right, who will build, and that's absolutely fine. That's core to them, in the sense that they're as a DNA. I don't mean core as a business problem, right? Like you will be surprised to know that FedEx and UPS, like logistics, is as core to this company as it gets. They both use a huge amount of external tech, right? Uber will not. Uber is a tech company, right? So I think the core is more about what's your DNA versus what's your business.
So I'm guessing a lot of investors asked you upfront about like, hey, why would they do this themselves? Because like it's an annoying investor question, right? And it's
it was a question. No, it was a so see, I pivoted to this business after doing 2 B2C businesses, right? So all that kick of writing a founder in my email signature was already gone. So I was actually very paranoid about discovering a problem statement, right? We did a lot of primary research in the sense that like I literally like spent months outside the warehouses outskirts. Like we slept under the truck, in the shade of that truck, on hot pavements, like because again, like from outside everything looks automated and logistics, right? But every time somebody was coming at your, have you noticed in these last 5 years there has been a very subtle change in your life? Till 5 years back, every time somebody was delivering, they were taking a signature on a paper. Today, everybody's taking a signature on an app or pressing a button or no signature, right? Because that's the digital feedback which is going back into their planning routing systems, right? So you can actually palpate this change as a consumer. The cost, the company can palpate, but these simple manifestations outside, right? So we were very paranoid about discovering this problem statement. And I used to keep asking my clients that, why are you not building it yourself? Right?
Yeah.
And they were like,
why are you paying me?
Yeah. Like, why would you, like, my worry was that, you will adopt it for a few months and then drop off. Right. And then some of the best business leaders explained to me that, dude, it's just not worth my time. Like, think of it this way, that let's say it takes you 10 units of money to build this. Let's say you are selling at 100% margin, as in like not 100% margin, at double the thing, right? So you're selling it for 10 customers for 20 units of money. Effectively, you're selling it to me for 2 units of money. Why would I go invest 10 units of money if I can form a basic comfort, right? And for that comfort, we have to do very specific steps. For example, we are an ISO certified company in data privacy. We are a British standard certified company. We are GDPR++. Our internal InfoSec mandates are even higher. We are a 3.9 reliability system. We are a 5.9 availability system, right? So if you're selling to, so that's why I also don't agree with startups cribbing about enterprises asking for this and that. It's their business. Like, it's a very valid ask. Like, if you make an InfoSec thing, like, it goes down to their insurance, right? So as a startup, it's my duty to make sure I'm ready to sell to an enterprise, right?
All of these requirements, you're saying these were requirements from those enterprises so that you're able to do what you're doing.
Business with
them.
That's
an investment in itself. Yep. It's an investment in itself, which is getting.
It's an investment in itself. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big investment. Like, I can tell you, like, I think our opportunity cost was, leave opportunity cost, our billing, our actual cost was about 680K the year we did it. And if I add in the opportunity cost on development, it was ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, but we think we made the right trade-off. And this was all done before the whole Facebook data privacy scandal broke off. We just
Mm.
got a bit fortunate there. Then everybody suddenly, like, I don't think we could have closed a single contract post that if we didn't have these
Right.
certifications.
I mean, and to your point, right? You're basically saying that one, my system becomes better the more data I have, right? That means even if I had one, two clients because of this, that means I'm able to deliver more, even in terms of
Yeah,
creating more value for myself, right, as a business.
definitely.
And I think that's the fun of it. Uh, what has been some of the biggest challenges in say building for this segment?
Yeah, I think the most critical challenge has been how core is logistics to anybody's business who has logistics, right?
Hmm.
Which basically means you can't be 95% fit. Logistics is a very tier one service for everyone, right? This is not a reconciliation thing activity. It's a real, like, my customers tell me that, if Locus will go down, I will know it on my Twitter. I don't need to look at any uptime dashboard, right? My customers will be complaining in real time, right? So our biggest challenge, both in terms of product and tech, has been to maintain the purity of the platform while making sure we can become a 99% fit for our customers.
And going global was because there was not enough depth in a single country, or because you're just seeing a more value and you need to, it's land grab, right? Just find more opportunities to sell.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's value in enough value in every country, but it's more opportunity. Like, the moment you take in your first venture dollar, you have fundamentally signed up for the fastest growth that you should can get, right? And then you should build for it. Same with us. Also, one more tactical point, that many of our customers are actually multinational companies. We have like almost like something like 35 to 40% of CPG coverage in like some of the large demographics. Yeah. Then we also become like a single point vendor for them to work across multiple, right? Now in some of our large $1 million plus contracts, right? Like, it's a requirement that if this scales in this geography, you should be able to support us there,
Hmm.
right? I have team, and my product works in 18 to 20 different languages. I have teams which can support multiple languages on the ground, right? And with COVID travel becoming tougher, we are actually now expanding the team geographies even more globally.
So you're saying that these get baked into contracts, saying that you need to be able to do
Yep,
all of
yeah,
this over time.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's incredible. Like, I mean, you'll be like, yeah, bring it on, right? Like, 'cause if I get to
yeah,
go to
yeah.
more countries.
So yeah, if I like, if I want like a moderate growth and sustain, like, I don't need to sign up a lot of new customers. I can actually just
Hmm.
grow sufficiently large in my existing customers. But yeah, I mean, I think I was just in a small call with Nitin Kamath from Zerodha, and he phrased it really well. That for many founders, like, business is like exactly like sports, right? Like, we train for it, we get up every morning feeling competitive, and it's more about what's that one extra thing we can do today as well.
Awesome, man. You have some incredible investors on your cap table now, and
Yeah,
that has probably definitely added fuel to the growth. But have has that enabled sale into some of these companies? Like, have they been able to open doors, and that has actually assisted you? And can you throw
sure.
some light on picking investors based on that?
Sure. We've been fortunate to be in a position where every round till now we have had the option to pick our investors. Very recently we had Falcon, and these guys are investors in SpaceX, and Tiger Global, investing into us. Prior to that, Bloom, Xfinity, GrowX have really helped us build. And even before that, some like ex founders who did us. So, for example, Amit Ranjan of SlideShare,
Mhm.
eh, I think he's one of just the most amazing product mentors you can borrow time from. And they have helped us in many ways, right? Not just clients. Let me elucidate a few, right? One, they have helped us in hiring, which is extremely critical. right? Some of my best leadership teams have come as reference from my investors. Then they've also helped me in interviewing. So, for example, when I was hiring my CFO, I didn't even know how to check the technical skills, right? So I called up the CFO of one of my investors, right, Ashish, and I'm like, "Can you help me?" And he was so generous that, like, I think he would have easily taken 6 to 8 interviews for us, because we also have a pretty high bar. Yeah, like, so it wasn't that we had selected the guy and he was just validating it, right? He actually helped us through and through. Then many of our investors have helped us open, customer gates. So we have Shailesh from Xfinity, uh, you know. Then we have Manish from Pi Ventures. Like, he has been a great mentor on the tech product side. Navroz from Falcon, right? Like, and see, and at a later stage, like, just having some of these large capital pools behind you, like Falcon and Tiger, gives very significant comfort to other enterprises that you won't die. Let me give you an example. So we become part of a very critical piece of the business operations, right? So
Mhm.
once we are plugged in, like, we can't die. So when there is a vendor registration thing, they talk a lot about business continuity, and the fact we have large hedge funds with deep pockets as our investors helps us a lot, right?
Mhm.
And then uh, in the recent COVID thing, we actually had a couple of customers call us that, hey, if you need like some 0% debt or something, tell us, like, but
No
just don't
way.
die. You can't die,
That's
right? Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, yeah.
Like free worry, like that's
So,
incredible. I mean, that's real validation, right?
right.
That's real
So
validation
you,
for what you're doing is actually helpful.
yeah, that, that if you need some survival, anything, you tell us. So we're like, no, no, thankfully we have made some right moves, and we have 2 to 3 years of runway already in the bank. And yeah, but yeah, I was extremely happy and humbled to hear that from my customers.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, you're also fortunate to be able to get these guys on board. Um, has this have anything to do with your alma mater? Bits, Bitians, tend to stick together.
We do. So in the sense that, uh, yeah, I don't know about the. It's a great entry into the door. It builds credibility, right? Like, there is so much noise in the market anytime, right? So every time you use your alma mater, investors, these are basically quick credibility building, right?
Hmm.
So it helps you get a foot into the door, right? Yeah, it
And
gets you a warm, quick foot.
probably also creates a nice pipeline of people you can hire from. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
from the
Same
network.
is
Yeah.
true for IITs also. Same is true for
Sure.
any reasonably decent institute. Like, I wouldn't go into, like, BITS is more close knit than IITs, or IITs are more like it's by the way, like, my co-founder is an IITian, right? So it's all
Sure.
good. Like,
You
for us,
you're
we
the best
couldn't,
best of
like,
both worlds.
yeah, yeah. And like, my head of business is also another IITian from Kanpur. My co-founder is from Kharagpur. I'm from Goa. One of my investors from Pilani. I mean the recent guys are from Harvard. Yeah. So it just helps you. Yeah, it just makes a good warm opening connect. Definitely. Like, you can't deny the value added things.
Speaking of hiring, are you bringing more people onto the rocket ship of Locus?
Always. I just actually ran the stats of this month, because I had to plan the next one, right? I personally took about 110 interview calls just this month,
Oh wow, that's insane.
because
So what are you
when
looking
I
for?
said, yeah, we're looking for talent across all tech revenue, right? Definitely a lot of. So, by the way, if anyone's listening and this, like, we have a discrete hack. It's a website called discretehack.com. This is a hackathon run specifically by Locus. We have like some good prize money and everything, and we put in a lot of heart and soul into the problem design. It's genuinely a good hackathon built by data scientists for you know all of us, like, often how I say Locus is that, Locus is made of two kind of people: one who code on production, and one who code on weekends, right? So our office has a full-fledged hardware lab. It's just a maker's lab. You can try out, test out. I personally still hack like small electronics project. Yeah, so a lot of us like hack and hustle on tech projects on our side things, right? And you will see at Locus many of the data scientists having the most engaging discussions you can find on stock market
Mhm.
investing, right? Because at some point it's again maths and analysis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we are just a team of problem solvers and builders, right? Like we don't mind breaking, structuring any problem. Between me and my head of sales, the guy I was mentioning from IIT Kanpur, Krishna,
Mhm.
we have broken down often sales into puzzles, everything. Like we test A/B test everything, that how many, like even simple things like how many meetings should I go in with a jacket? How many meetings should I go in with a t-shirt? Just A/B test everything. Make it a
That's so
puzzle.
funny.
Make it fun.
No, man, this is great. How do I sign up? um, hey, so you mentioned that you're making a few million in revenue. Have you hit the unicorn club yet? Are you in 100 million ARR at the moment?
No, we are not in 100 million ARR club yet. That's where we are planning to. And now what has definitely happened is that from a pipe dream, it has actually become like our next goal on our slide deck, right? Like, and very recently we got listed along, JDA, Oracle, Manhattan Associates as one of the best global routing vendors. And these were guys who were like my ideals when I started 4 years back. Today they are my competitors. So it feels nice. I have a lot of respect for them. And yes, I would like to hit 100 million ARR, but at the same time, I would like to hit 100 million ARR while still growing 100% YOY and
Hmm.
EBITDA positive, right? See, I mean, startups is about growth. So I don't want to hit any revenue mark without continuing to grow 100% YOY.
You don't want to have a burnout, right? In the startup, burnout is different.
Yeah, I
um,
mean, that's okay. Um, I mean,
um,
like how I often describe it to my team is that I think at this point, we have qualified for the global Olympics heat, right?
hmm.
So now we are in the final race, but there are still 8 people running. And there is the podium, but yes, the next stop is the podium.
Cool, man. I'm sure you guys are going to hit velocity and hit the podium and be a Michael Phelps, get all the gold medals in
Thank
every
you.
single Olympics that you participate.
Yeah.
Uh, hey, awesome, Nishit. This has been fun. I'm going to leave you to your weekend in London. So stay safe and hope to catch up with you soon. Good luck.
Thanks, Varun. This was very engaging. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Cheers, man.